Okay. Tom, to talk satellite.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a while. It's great to catch up with you again.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you too, Tom. One of the main issues affecting our industry, if not the main one at the moment, what are your thoughts on the impact of LEO to GEO FSS business?
Yes, this has been a major topic over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years. I would summarize the impact in three major groups. I think, first and foremost, it's been a massive market disruption for all forms of services impacting geo revenues. Basically, because of Starlink, their ease of adoption terminals, low cost, easy to deploy, easy to self-install, has been a remarkable wake-up call for the GEO operators. For the first time ever, I think in history, consumers can now buy a kit and adopt high throughput, high capacity broadband services anywhere in the world. And it's self-installable, and it has never happened before GEO satellites. I believe GEO satellite operators could have invested in an antenna technology that could have matched what Starlink is offering, but they were never able to combine their resources together in the past. And SpaceX, through the billions of dollars that they invested and the remarkable and intelligent engineers that they hired, was able to create this engineering marvel terminal that could be pretty much delivering broadband anywhere in the world. And it's been a very big surprise. And also the low latency, as well as the all you can eat consumer tariff that Starlink launched with, resulted in many end users churning away from GEO, especially for, connectivity to remote areas, to schools, hospitals, even ships, small vessels. And it's resulted in a big amount of, let's say, short-term churn away from GEO. So it's made all the GEO operators, especially the global ones, stop to take notice, think about their future. And they themselves are now looking into consolidation, investing in NGSO systems and platforms. And we've seen examples of that. Intelsat merging with CS doubling down on Empower, Eutelsat merging with OneWeb and focusing all their energies on the second generation system. Telesat even making public statements that they may not buy another GEO satellite, that they may go all in on LEO. It's really changed the industry in a remarkable way. I do believe that the regional and local satellite operators who are unable to invest in their own LEO constellations or MEO systems just because of their size and scale, they've taken a wait and see approach. But and I think they're going to be much more conservative in terms of how they're going to approach making new investments. LEO has fundamentally changed the GEO business and how GEO operators look at the world, and it will never be the same again. It's not all bad news for GEO. The recent consumption-based pricing changes at Starlink points that their service has to be in alignment with their costs. I think Starlink has announced a whole bunch of tariff changes where they're now starting to charge based on gigabyte download. And then the tariff seems to be aligning to about $1 per gigabyte. $1 per gigabyte would translate to roughly around $150 to $200 per megabit. And I believe GEO satellites could be much more competitive than that. Pretty soon, GEO software-defined satellites are going to be well below $1 million per gigabit. I envision 50 to 100 gigabit GEO satellites will be priced well under $100 million delivered into orbit. That would translate to a monthly price per megabit close to $5 per month, substantially lower than what Starlink is charging on their consumption tariffs. So there's still a lot of life left at GEO. And I would encourage the big global and regional operators to not abandon it, but to double down and reinvest in these lower cost, high performance satellites. And if they're not willing to do that, I think many new entrants will take their place.
On the manufacturing side, can you comment on those generating the GEO satellite business?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the biggest problems that the GEO operators have faced, because many of them ordered high throughput capacity software defined satellites from both Airbus and Thales, OneSat and the Space Inspire platforms. I think the idea behind those satellites are very good. It's software defined, extremely large amount of capacity that can be deployed over a small area, very low gigabit price per millions of dollars. But the technical challenges of building those systems, the payloads, all the infrastructure they had to put in place for the brand new platforms, it was very difficult. And both of these programs are very delayed, resulting in huge losses for both organizations. And they have not been able to deliver the satellite platforms. And had they delivered it to the GEO operators, they would have those low cost per megabit satellites to compete against Starlink. But since they don't have it, they only have their older capacity, which is much higher in terms of price per megabit. It's made the existing GEO operators much less competitive compared to the new competition. So I see Airbus and Thales, they're talking about merging their businesses. I think they're going to be focused on that and trying to come out of this situation. Hopefully they'll be able to do the merger and maybe reduce the amount of complexity of the satellites that they're trying to build. And hopefully they'll be able to make a satellite technology that would be affordable for the GEO operators. If you look at the US companies, I think companies like Lockheed and Northrop, they're not necessarily investing in the GEO software defined satellites. They're more focusing their energies on taking capability or acquiring capability for LEO satellites. If you look at Lockheed, they just completed the acquisition of Terran Orbital, who was supplying them the platform for many of their SDA contracts. Northrop Grumman acquired Blue Canyon Technologies, which is a fantastic company that was building components for small satellites as well as they have their own small satellite platforms. So I think that's a smart strategy. Instead of chasing commercial business at GEO, they're acquiring NGSO capabilities and chasing the government business. I think Boeing has announced that they're going to adapt their Empire satellites for creating software-defined GEO satellites. So hopefully, they're going to be able to make them at a price point that could be affordable to GEO operators. I think Maxar, we just heard the news that they just won a fresh FS 1300 order from a undisclosed customer. We see and we heard rumors that they're also diversifying into LEO manufacturing and cislunar capabilities. So everybody's having to adapt to the fact that the GEO customer base is kind of stalled or stagnant or not proceeding. So the major contractors are doing other things. But if you look at the small GEO manufacturers, there's been a lot of activity, especially in fundraising. There's been over $1 billion combined fundraised for several companies, such as Astranis, K2 Space, Swiss 12, Ascend Arc. In my perspective, GEO is extremely hard. It requires very expensive electronics that have been tested, have heritage. Any company who just makes an assumption that they can do something at GEO for lower costs and while bypassing all the research that needs to be done to make electronics resilient at GEO, I think they're gonna have failures. We have seen failures. They're gonna continue to have failures. So, I'll just give an example. I would say Swiss to 12, who's working with Thales, they did not go that route. They're working with a large prime contractor to get their components, while they, being a smaller company, is able to still produce the GEO satellite at a lower cost. I think Twister 12 has that combination of reliability as well as reduced cost basis for them to win contracts. The other companies that I mentioned, there's not much detail about what they're doing. They've raised a lot of money, but if they're building their own components, if they feel that they can reduce the costs by self-developing their own technology, I think they're going to go through a lot of pain because, geo is very, very difficult. That's what I would say. That's what's happening in the geo market.
Okay, so from a business perspective, the impact of new space investment globally?
Yeah, I think space investments really picked up last year in 2024. But in the past 3 years, slightly over $45 billion have been invested into new space. So there's an explosion of new projects, new companies coming up, making components, doing services, trying to provide new connectivity as well as Earth observation, remote sensing, IoT, directed device technologies. So it's fantastic to see so much money going into new space and so many new interesting companies being created and a lot of young people coming into the industry. So I'm very excited for new space. And we are seeing a couple of new interesting trends. We're seeing LEO satellites grow from CubeSats. So there's a lot of new platforms that are coming up that could support 500 watts, a kilowatt to even 2 kilowatts of power. But what I find the most interesting in the new space area now is the rise of the small launchers that are able to bring the cost of launch to low Earth orbit below $10 million per ton. Some companies are even aiming for 50% of that level at 5 million per ton. If you think about that, um, if you're going to do a low Earth orbit constellation, you're going to have to go into minimum 10 orbit planes, minimum 10 to 12 satellites per plane. So if you were going to use a Falcon 9, for example, you'd be paying something like 50 million plus per launch. So just the launches themselves alone is going to cost $500 million. But if you're able to build a very small, affordable LEO satellite, stack them up together and launch them for only 5 million per plane, then you could launch a LEO constellation globally for only $50 million. So including the satellites, insurance, I see that in the future, we'll be able to build LEO constellations, not for billions of dollars, but 200 to 300 million. So that's an affordable level for even regional geo satellite operators to get into, or small countries. So I see an exciting future for new space because of the growth of the capability of small satellites for LEO, as well as the low cost launches, that there's going to be a lot more constellations being developed and launched and financed. So I see exciting times ahead. So in terms of what I'm doing in this space, because of this proliferation and the growth of the low cost small rockets, we're actually redesigning our GEO and LEO satellites to take advantage of these new launch platforms, not only just to lower the cost per megabit, but also to reduce the absolute investment cost of a GEO satellite or LEO constellation. I think things are going to be substantially more affordable than ever thought possible before.
Tom, thank you very much for coming along and updating us on the market and what you yourself are addressing in the market. We wish you every success.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Take care.